I'll tell you a story. Joan was an extremely strong-willed woman her whole life, and her daughter, and she battled since childhood. Her daughter was living in Italy, and her mother got dementia. So I met the daughter, Catherine, when she hired me to do an assessment of her mother. So I actually lived at their house for 2 weeks, and oh my God, Joan was a fighter. She would fight over everything. She was a control person all her life, and now she's losing control. It was so difficult, and I was realizing that I'm not a proponent of nursing homes unless there's no other option. And for her father, who was the only caregiver in the house, he had heart trouble, and he was getting sicker and sicker with the battling with his wife. So I had said to Catherine, I said, I don't think home caregivers are going to be good. I think you're going to have to place your mother. In that 2 weeks, I had grown so fond of Joan. I loved the fight in her. She was just fighting to stay Joan. And I just saw that as, oh, it was a pain in the ass, but I just loved her for that. And I told her daughter, I says, when she loses that fight, she'll leave. She'll be gone. And she never lost that fight, even in the nursing home. They kicked her out of 2. And Catherine hired me to be her advocate just to make sure that she got what she needed. So anyway, it was a year of spending time with Joan and her daughter and counseling her daughter on how to perceive her mother in a different way, rather than taking all of the troubles she had with her mother from her childhood that she had stuffed and bringing them into the presence. I says, you know, your mom is becoming different. She's in the process of becoming. And I says, you're probably going to find the absolute person that you always wish you had known now. And so we worked on that, and she became Joan's strongest advocate now. And if I found Joan wet where she hadn't been changed or something, Catherine would go in and raise hell at the administration. So she started becoming the advocate for her mother. By the time, I'd say 6 months before her mother had died, those two were so close, so loving, so unconditionally caring about each other. Catherine's still in touch with me. Joan has passed, and she's still in touch with me, and she still thanks me for what I was able to show her to shift her perception about her mother and go to that pure spirit that her mother always was, but was just covered up with all of that stuff that we have in life, those opinions, the control issues, all the other things, because those were all stripped away gradually, and to the point where Joan was just this loving, incredible spirit. And if Catherine hadn't shifted her perception, she would have missed all that. Her mother would have passed and she would have missed it. She was able to resolve her issues, her lifetime issues with her mother in the last 6 months of her mother's life. And as a result, Catherine could go forward with no guilt, with no resentments, and with no residual issues that will color her life forever. She was able to work through those. So the regeneration of what happens when these families are brought back together and that they perceive their loved one in a completely different way, and they receive the gift from their loved one, that their loved one is becoming, they're becoming their whole gift. For me, it's just a joy